Greetings and salutations, travelers of the internet, and welcome to the Lit Round Table. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Anna. We'll be your wise or not so wise mentors for today's audio adventure into all things storytelling.
I have no idea what episode number this is.
It's 17.
Awesome.
Do you know how I know that? I made the art for it today.
Amazing.
Yes.
I'm so glad. Coming in clutch with the artwork.
Yes.
So that we can know what episode we're on.
I'm excited for this next one. Or like for you guys to see this artwork that I put together for this one. Because I think it's kind of cool. But today we're talking about fan fiction and fan art.
Interesting. I'm excited.
Yes.
Excited to dive into the fascinating world of copyright claims. But before that...
Right. Oh, gosh.
Before that, we can talk about what we're watching and reading and all that.
Yeah. Why don't you go first, bud?
Okay. I actually have so many things to talk about this time.
That's awesome.
Because I finished The Great Hunt.
Congratulations.
Finally.
How was it?
It was good. I think I understand the critique that people have of the first three books. I've heard the third book is similar to the first two in that they're kind of similar story-wise. Like they kind of all three of them follow the same structure. But apparently the fourth one is where things start to veer off and the story kind of starts to do its own thing. So people like to joke that the first three books are like a really long prologue of the 13-book series. So
yeah, that's fair.
But I mean, the story itself was very good, and especially towards the end of it, I was very invested in the situations that the characters found themselves in, and I am looking forward to where the story takes us. And I am also looking forward to the Wheel of Time TV show, which there was a trailer for. If you have not seen it, I would recommend you go see it.
I haven't seen it yet, so I should go look it up.
You should watch it. And we should talk about it after you watch it.
Okay.
Maybe after we record, you can watch it.
Okay.
So, I'm also glad that I've made it through book 2, because from what we're seeing in the trailer, it kind of looks like they're pulling from book 1 and book 2 for some of this stuff. So I'm glad that I've made it through the first 2 books before season 1. So I'm really excited about that. And I finally got in my volume 12 for Demon Slayer.
Yay!
Which I have now read all of that one, and I read all of 13, and I am working on 14, and after that I have 15.
Wow.
So I'm just kind of blitzing through those volumes that I have.
That's how I was with My Hero Academia, so I get it.
Also, while we're still talking about manga, I don't know if I talked about this last time, but I got the manga for Persona 4, which Persona 5 is a game that I really like. It's a video game. And the game Persona 4 has a manga for it, which I know that I'm probably not going to play the game unless they release it remastered for PS4 or something. So I was like, well, I'll just get the manga for it. So I've been reading that, and that's been fun.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that just like when you and I were talking. I don't think we were recording.
Okay.
So.
Cool. So I have the first 2 volumes of that. I still need to finish the first volume for that. Let's see. For reading... Oh, and also Dragons of Autumn Twilight. Still reading that together.
Yep.
Let's see. For reading, that might be about it. So now I'm going to be starting the 3rd book in Wheel of Time, which is The Dragon Reborn. So,
nice.
I'm excited about that. So for watching, I am, well, I think I mentioned last time I finished Critical Role Campaign 2, correct?
I don't think you had yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I finished Campaign 2.
Yes.
And see, I can't remember like what I just mentioned in passing in conversation, what we actually recorded.
To me,
but,
yeah.
But yeah, I finished Campaign 2. Very emotional, very good. Very sad that I won't be binging that anymore. And it's like when you finish a book series or a video game or something, and you get that. It's like end of book depression. Like
Yes.
you're
Yes.
coping with how you're not going to interact with these characters anymore on a regular basis, and it's like you're mourning the death of a friendship almost, and it's just it takes a while to get over. But
Yeah. I will
yeah,
be touching on that when it's my turn.
hmm um, let's see what else am I watching. We are watching. Hope and I are watching some anime. Um, what was it? Oh, I'm up to date on To Your Eternity now, which is over until like next fall, and I'm
I
sad.
know. I know. Oh,
Uh, it's such a good
so
show. It's
good.
so sad, but it's so compelling. Um,
Mm-hmm.
very compelling characters.
I just love Fushi so much for
I
being a
know.
little alien blob.
hmm And everyone he interacts with is
Oh my
doomed.
gosh.
Um,
Yeah. And it makes him so sad.
yep, yep. Let's see. For watching that, I mean, I'm watching other random stuff, but nothing. Oh, I did watch that animated Witcher movie on Netflix,
Oh,
and that
how
was
was
good.
that?
I liked it.
Okay.
It's a prequel of the live action show and of the of Witcher 3 game that I have played. It's a prequel to all of that, kind of following Geralt's Witcher mentor figure, like the guy who taught him how to
Sure.
be a Witcher. It's kind of his backstory.
Okay.
It's very interesting. So,
Nice.
I am also looking forward to when season 2 of Witcher comes out, which I think is this fall. I think that's when season 2 is out.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So, and then November 19th is Wheel of Time. So, I am set for stuff that's gonna. Oh, and the
Oh,
Star Wars Visions thing.
And Demon Slayer season 2 comes out in October.
Yeah, this fall is gonna be hype. Um,
Yeah, I'm very excited for
we're gonna
all
have
the
so much to
things.
talk about on the
I
podcast.
know. It's going to be awesome.
Okay, that's pretty much it for watching. As far as games, I did pick up some new games. I just started Fallout 4, which is like a post-apocalyptic nuclear wasteland game where you were locked in a vault during nuclear Armageddon, and then you come out and you're like fighting mutated monster goos and other survivors, and it's interesting. It's made by the same people that made Skyrim, so it's like a big open world thing. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Also, I'm watching Hope play Alien Isolation, which is a horror game based on the Alien movies,
Ugh.
and that has been fun to watch her rage at the game.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
so yeah, I'm looking forward to watching her play that some more. So yeah, that has been pretty much it for me. So what
Cool.
about you?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll start with what I've been reading. Since our last podcast, I finished all of the My Hero Academia manga. And maybe I had finished that and was waiting for the next volume.
Mm.
Yes, I had. Which the next volume arrived today.
Ooh, have you read it? Or are you going to after this?
I've read the first third of it.
Okay.
I will finish it tonight. But here's what happened. I, speaking of going through like mourning when you finish something,
Uh-huh.
because we're also caught up on the show. So I was like not able to binge watch it anymore, couldn't binge read it anymore. It was just really missing My Hero Academia characters and world. So I looked online to see if you can read any of the chapters online, even though I didn't really want to pay to read the chapters online because I was like, I'm going to buy the volume, but
Mm-hmm.
I do want to read it so that I can see like what all the spoilers are about. So I thought that I was on an official website.
Oh. Did you illegally read these?
I read translations, but
Okay.
they were not the official translations,
I see.
which this is apparently a thing. Because I got like up to a certain point, and then I found that Viz Media actually has the like last 3 or 4 chapters have been released available for free. So once you get caught up, you can just like tune in once a week and read the newest chapter.
Cool.
So I read all of the like unofficially translated chapters. And then I went and read the like 3 most recent officially translated chapters, and there were some like very significant differences. So I am excited to read the official translation in the volumes now.
Nice.
As they come out. So, but emotional. Things are happening.
I am excited and scared.
As you should be. But like that's any good story. So
yeah.
I also finished The Last Battle, which is the final book in the Chronicles of Narnia. So, and we just had our last book club on it, which was like bittersweet, because I really enjoyed reading it with the kiddos. But and they were like, they're so insightful and so thoughtful. Like the kids are awesome. And made the book more enjoyable. I was admittedly nervous about The Last Battle because it covers some things that...
It gets dark.
I was like, this is going to be like a big conversation.
It's like, let's talk about death.
Yeah. Yeah. And salvation and like all kinds of stuff. But they handled it really well, I thought. Yeah. So, and we're able to make some good connections, which was fun. So that's kind of like feel like I'm mourning that a little bit. So finally finished with that series. And let's see, what else am I reading? Dragon's Battle, Twilight. And I have been reading more of Yona of the Dawn, which is another manga. I'm on volume 5 now of that. So, and that's been really good, which I'm reading digitally, unfortunately.
You're reading what?
Digitally, because I can't, like the official, I'm buying the ebooks of it.
Gotcha.
Because it's not available in print.
Oh.
In a lot of, or like it is, but you have to get it on eBay and it's like $40 for 1 volume of manga.
Must be out of print or something.
Some of the early ones are, yeah. Yeah, so I have been reading it digitally, which is fine. It's just not my preferred method of reading it, but that's okay. I'm still in a little bit of a reading slump, but you know what? It's okay because I have officially read 100 books this year.
Wow. That's a lot of books.
Now, like 30 plus of them are manga volumes, but still.
Oh, yeah.
Still. I also found some Star Wars manga.
That's cool.
Oh, yeah, and it was Leia, Princess of Alderaan. So it's based on a book by Claudia Gray, and I'm not sure which book it is, but it's a manga version of it. So, which I can't remember what the artist's name is, but I will include that in the description of the video and of the podcast. So,
cool.
And so that was really fun because it's like her time, like she's 16 at the start of it, and it goes through some of the like Alderaan customs and history, and it's very cool. So it's fun.
Yeah.
Fun to read. So. And then for what I've been watching, I also finished To Your Eternity, which I also have some volumes of the manga for that, but I have not started reading them yet.
Okay. You have to let me know if it's pretty spot on with the show.
Yeah. You know, they're, even like reading the My Hero stuff, it's pretty close, but there are some differences. So, but yeah, so I finished To Your Eternity, and I watched a show called The Saints. How does that go? It's like The Saints' magic power is omnipotent or something like that. It's an anime on Funimation. It's a portal fantasy. So these 2 girls get sucked into this alternate world, and they're like, they may be the saint, who is just like a powerful magic user from this other world. But they don't have they're like, their original world is like our world.
Yeah.
So they come into it like without any like magic basis, but they use like magic to make potions and like imbue things with magic and whatever. It's very good. It was very cute. And that just released this year. And I think there were 12 episodes, so it may just be like the end of the first season, but it kind of ended like it could just end.
Oh,
which I appreciate because Yona ended with a major cliffhanger and then didn't get renewed. So,
yeah.
um,
At least if it doesn't come back, there was kind of a bow, kind of
yes.
tied it up a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. Which, so I'm watching that on Funimation, which I started watching it because it was in English and I wanted something to do while I was hand quilting, because I'm hand quilting right now. And I can't like be reading the TV while hand quilting.
Hmm.
And I got to the 6th episode and started it and was hand quilting. Was like, wow, I must have like been really zoning out. I have no idea what's going on. And I look up and they're speaking in Japanese. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I must have like flipped it. No. Only the first 6 episodes were in
Oops.
English and the rest were dubbed, or subbed, which is fine. So I had to watch the rest of it in subtitles. But
Yeah, that happens.
yeah, was totally fine. Enjoyed it both ways, but just made me laugh because I was so like, I'm getting so accustomed to hearing the Japanese that I'm not necessarily recognizing that, or like I don't notice when I'm watching something in Japanese that I don't actually understand what they're saying.
Right.
So every once in a while I have to like stop and restart something because my brain like thinks it knows Japanese and it definitely does not.
Nope.
Although I am starting to pick out like a couple of words, but nothing to write home about. So, and I watched a show called Bake Squad. So if you're needing some like reality baking TV, it was fun because it was a competition, but they're like competing for to like do the dessert for a specific event, and they're all professionals and like friends, and so they help each other occasionally. Like it was really nice and wholesome. And there's like a chocolatier and a patissier expert. I don't know if that's the right word.
I wouldn't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, as someone who's proficient in French pastry.
Oh, interesting.
And yes, and like a cake, like a big cake sculptor. And I'm not sure what the other gal's. She's really good at pies, but it was really fun. So if you're needing a baking show, Bake Squad is a new one.
Bake Squad
on Netflix.
I will keep that in mind.
Yeah, you don't watch baking shows as much.
I
as
will
I do,
tell Hope about it.
There you go. There you go. So, and we've been watching Attack on Titan still for our anime night. We're almost caught up.
Yeah, we have
So
like
close.
what was it? Like 6 episodes left of season 4, part 1.
Yep. So, which I mostly am just very confused.
Yeah, that show really blows your mind.
It takes a few really hard left turns.
Yeah, you don't. It's crazy though. It's just because when you go back and watch it again, you're like, oh wow, I didn't see it coming, but the signs were totally there the whole time. I just did not think that's what it meant. And because going back and watching it again, it makes total sense. But the first time viewing it, it's just so jarring. The crazy plot twists that happen. But I mean, I'm kind of here for it because the plot twists still make sense. It doesn't feel like they were just trying to come up with stuff to shock you. It all still seems very intentional. Like this was their plan all along. Yeah. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, there are definitely moments of that in My Hero too, which I just have a lot of respect for manga writers and animators at this point. So
especially the animators. Some of them are like very underpaid and overworked. Pay your animators.
Yes, please.
So, anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, does that wrap things up for you?
Yeah, that's probably enough.
Okay. Fair.
Yeah, so let's talk about fanfiction and fan art. Which do you want to talk about first?
I want to talk about fanfiction, and I want to talk about how you wrote however many chapters of a fanfiction, of a Lord of the Rings fanfiction. I want to talk about it.
Okay, we can talk about it.
How it's probably one of the cringiest memories you have.
Are you saying it was bad?
No, I'm just saying you're your worst critic, and if you went back and reread the things you wrote, you would probably hate yourself.
Yes, and it is very cringeworthy. Like so incredibly cringeworthy. So after we recorded our first podcast where this came up, and I don't remember if that was the first one or the second one or when.
It was sometime towards the very beginning.
Yes. So I wrote a fan fiction called A Maiden of Faith, and it was a Lord of the Rings meets Portal Fantasy self-insert story.
Very self-insert.
Yes. Where the main character wore a back brace and she somehow found her, I know exactly how, but found herself in Middle Earth and fell in love with Aragorn's son, and which totally makes sense because I love Aragorn. So of course I would love his son.
What's his name?
Alderaan. And yeah, so after we had that recording, I went back to that website because it was published on theonering.net.
You heard theonering.net?
And it is a booger to find. So I am not even worried about anyone finding it because they have done a total revamp of the website, and like none of the old tags work. It took me forever to find it, and then to find them like in the correct order. And there's no like, it used to be that an author had their own page if you paid for like the premium whatever, which I totally did. And like you could have an author page and like have all your chapters linked, but that doesn't exist anymore. So you can't just like, and you can't go between the chapters. Like you can't be on chapter 1 and then hit next chapter anymore, which you used to be able to do. So it's like, it's a real booger. So if you find it, have at it. Cringe with me. It's terrible.
You should link the first chapter in the description.
No. I don't know if I can find it again. It was that hard to find. And it was very cringy. I had like 37 plus chapters posted online. And I know that I had more in me.
Yeah.
And like more on my computer that didn't get posted.
Yeah.
So
Went the way of many fan fiction authors.
I did.
Never finished it.
Which is fine. It didn't need an ending. I don't know if I had an ending in mind. So.
Do you remember what year it was when you started doing that?
Well, I was in my back brace. So it would have been before my junior year of high school. I'm going to guess I was like a freshman.
That sounds right.
8th grade freshman. And the whole reason I started writing it was because I found theonering.net, and they had all this other Lord of the Rings fan fiction that I was reading and just like loving. They had very strict guidelines on what was allowed. So there wasn't like any smut.
Yeah.
Or not that there's anything
Nothing that was not safe for work.
wrong with that. Yeah, nothing that was not safe for work. It was all very like PG-13 at best. Because like people died and fought in graphic ways. But
they can't procreate. We draw the line.
No.
At making love.
Well, you can't know how they procreate.
Yeah. It's a mystery.
Yes.
We can strangle each other with our bare hands.
Right. So I do want to put that preface on here. So it's not like our dad and our mom were like letting me, a very impressionable person, just like loose on a random like fanfic.net or AOC or that's not AOC.
Archive of our own.
AO3. Yeah. So not that there's anything wrong with that. We'll get to that later. I'm just saying that like my experience of fan fiction was like a very like specific, safe for work, safe for kids experience. And I read a ton of it. And there were some very gifted fanfic writers out there. Yeah. And it was very inspiring to me. And that's why I started participating. But I remember that it was like back in the days when we had dial-up. Because I would get on the computer and I would open a billion tabs and like load the chapters of the things I wanted to read so that they were cached. And then when I was offline, I would still have the tabs available to read. And it was the worst if the refresh button got pushed.
Sounds awful.
Well, it was offline. It was like, it's very different from how people interact with fan fiction now, which just makes me laugh because it was so old.
Tell me you're 30 without telling me you're 30. Back when we had dial-up.
For real, though. For real, though. And, like, getting in trouble for being on it too long.
Yeah.
I just have 5 more chapters to download. And I wasn't actually downloading. It was just loading the pages. But, yeah. And I would, like, make the windows super tiny, like little squares. And I'd have, like, 1,000,000 squares across the top. And then I'd make the square big. And I'd read the chapter. And then I'd close it. I'd make the next square big and read the chapter and close it. It was a whole ritual.
It sounds like quite the ordeal.
Just for fanfiction.
I was just playing with my Star Wars action figures.
Yeah, I was older.
Or my Legos.
Obviously. Yeah. So that was like I don't know, did you ever read a lot of fan fiction besides what I was writing?
I read yours. I did get really into one other fan fiction. And this is actually like later. I think you had graduated and weren't at home. Because I would have been talking to you about this had you been at home. But it was a fanfic on OneRing.net. It was also Lord of the Rings fanfic. And it was about the backstories of each of the 9 ring wraiths. And it like went into how each of them got their ring of power and got kind of duped into taking it. And like who they were beforehand. And it would like alternate between flashbacks to their backstory and the present time, which is the War of the Ring. Like it kind of starts right when the Witch King gets killed, and then it's talking like there's one of them is at the battle at Lothlorien, one of them is at the battle at Erebor and Dale, and there's a lot of it was really cool. Like each of the ring wraiths kind of having their own personality that comes through. And it went all the way up through when they all got destroyed by Mount Doom in the fire, when the ring got destroyed. So it was very, very interesting. And I got really into that one. And it actually had an ending. So that was cool.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of the ones that I read also had endings on that website. Like mine was atypical that way. But I was also... Like, mine was being published just as, like, The Lord of the Rings was...
It was, like, peak Lord of the Rings fan base.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because I also interacted with the message boards on there, like, all the time. Got myself into some real trouble.
Yeah.
Not real... Don't worry, Dad. Not real trouble. Just, like, dumb arguments with adults that I had no business arguing with.
About
I wish I could take
Lord
that
of the
back.
Rings lore.
Sometimes just like random stuff.
My dad could beat up your dad.
No. I'd go into like the philosophy tab and like take on.
Oh gosh.
Like adults.
You like, oh
It was
gosh.
bad. It was real bad. I'm real embarrassed about it. I wish I could take it back.
And how many of them knew that they were like debating a literal child and had to like hold back?
None of them. They did not hold back.
Oh.
Which is fine. It was
That's
well
good.
deserved.
Probably like, you were literally 14 years old. Go drink some chocolate milk.
Yeah. I don't know if they knew how young I was, but
that's probably good.
it doesn't matter.
Anyway, I also remember reading one other one, and that was one that you also read. It started off in like a script format, and like the MC had a thing with Boromir, and like, do you remember this? Oh, you're gonna remember it, and it's gonna blow your mind. Like, it starts off with the character, which was female, skiing, and comes across the Fellowship. In the Misty Mountains. And this author also they never finished it. I don't even remember what it was called, but it was good. I don't remember what it was called, though.
Oh my gosh.
I knew you'd remember it once I described it a little bit.
Yes. Something about the skiing trip just like really stuck in my brain. I do remember
like
that.
Her ski poles were like her weapons for a while.
Yeah. Oh, what was that one? That's gonna bug me.
Well,
and like all these writers were also like in the message boards. This was the cool thing about it, right? Because you would like post your story and then you'd go into the message boards and you'd be like, hey, I just posted a new chapter of my story. And these people that were following you and were also writing their own fan fiction would go and read your story, and then they'd come back to the message board and they'd like talk to you about it. Or they'd like leave comments on the story. And they were like super supportive, really encouraging, would call you out for like dumb stuff like, I didn't know that a maiden was an unmarried person as a 13-year-old. So I referred to a married Eowyn as the Maiden of Rohan. And they were like, yeah, she's not a maiden anymore because she is married.
There you go.
You know, so like it was very educational in that way.
That's something you kind of miss now.
Yeah, I do miss that. Like it was a good little writing community of Tolkien nerds that were like super fun and encouraging.
Yeah.
And some of them were like actually published authors too. And this was just like their fun writing that they did on the side.
That's really cool.
So
I bet there's some Star Wars sites that are similar.
Probably. I have not like gotten into more recent fan fiction. Mostly because I don't know where to find it. I mean, I know like AO3 and whatever, but I just haven't done that in a long time. I used to go to fanfiction.net and like search for specific characters and like read stories about them. But,
I know there are a couple of big sites that people usually go to, and there's like almost any fandom you can find fan fiction for.
Oh yeah,
like Doctor Who, Supernatural, Sherlock.
Really? You're gonna bring
those are the Super Who-lock people.
Yes.
You know those folks love their fanfic.
You know you were on Tumblr in the
Misha Apocalypse.
2012's Misha Apocalypse. Oh that's so funny. I haven't thought about that in a long time.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's kind of my experience with fan fiction. Always positive. Never had a fanfic where I was like, oh, that's stupid. You know? Like,
I mean, I can't say that I'd never read one that I didn't think was like,
yeah.
What
but you also read more than me.
Those definitely exist. But it was still, even when you read something that's not great or is unpolished, there's still stuff to learn about it as far as writing process goes, and just storytelling. And like, you know what? Stories don't have to be perfectly polished all the time.
Yeah.
Like if it's about something that you enjoy and you just want to engage with that story a little more, fandom's a great fan fiction within the fandom is a great place to turn to. You just have to remember, like there are instances where the fandom gets a little
rough,
crazy. Like I'm thinking of not necessarily the Lord of the Rings because I wouldn't say that's like a super active fandom anymore, which is fine.
It's a little more niche. But hey, when the Amazon show comes back, I think it
will resurface.
Revive.
For sure. But I'm thinking of like the My Hero Academia fandom and like some of those Star Wars. I mean, the Star Wars fandom is notorious for being pretty toxic a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like anytime the writer or creator of the actual like canon piece of fiction feels like they have to alter what they're doing to accommodate for the fandom, it's bad business.
Yeah.
Like that shouldn't happen. They shouldn't feel that pressure. Like if you want to ship two characters, and for those that don't know, shipping two characters is like you want them to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
That's where the word comes from. Like if you ship two characters, like that's totally fine, but don't get mad if it doesn't show up in the canon because maybe that's not the story that the writer's trying to tell, and that's okay.
It is okay.
You know? So.
I was going to say, it seems like there's a fine line between passionate and toxic. And this is just kind of a critique of fandom in general. You know, when people are so into something, it's like their entire life and they get so invested. It's like when you're a creator and you're creating a story, like you want people to be really invested and you want people to enjoy it, but you also, it's like, no, I own this though. This is my story. I'm not going to like cater to what you want. But at the same time, I guess where that would kind of play in with the whole fanfic thing. If like, so how would you feel if your books got published and there were some very, very popular fanfics that, like, would you feel like your thunder was being stolen a little bit? Would like what would how would you feel like just from like an author's
Well,
perspective? Like, what do you think it's like having fanfic written of your stuff?
I mean, I think it would depend. I think that if I was Stephanie Gray, no, hold on. If I
Stephanie
was,
Meyer.
thank you. You know
I
where I'm
know
going
exactly
with
where
this.
you're going with this.
If I was Stephanie Meyer, and some fan fiction, some super erotic fan fiction was written about my pretty PG-13 books meant for young adults, got picked up by a publishing house and given a new name, 50 Shades of Grey. I drew a blank
Yeah.
on what it's called. I would maybe be a little miffed because those books did so well. But I have not read 50 Shades of Grey, but my understanding is that it's a pretty different story from Twilight.
Right. It was.
Obviously different genre, like totally.
I think it was supposed to be like a alternate
Alternate
universe where it's like the
reality.
same characters but they exist in a different setting. Like they're not actually vampires or anything because it's based on
Right.
Twilight. But my understanding is they pretty much just went in, changed the names out from the Twilight names to different names, and
Right.
and published it. And that does seem,
And made a lot of
yeah,
money.
that does seem kind of gross.
But like kind of got to respect
Respect the
the
hustle, like the
yeah. A little bit. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a great honor to have people love something that you created so much that they wanted to create more of it. Like that they just wanted to live in that world and take up space there. And like, I think that that would be so cool. I would be such an avid reader of fan fiction written about my world. But I would have to like set some boundaries for myself because I think it would be very easy to feel taken in by these other ideas. So I'd have to like be careful not to let it influence the ultimate story I was trying to tell too much.
right.
Because like okay, you could technically think about screen adaptations of stories as a kind of fan fiction, right?
Right.
Because they're not the same thing. They're an approximation of the original story, but the screenwriters and directors have every right to make changes. And when you're talking about books or series that have not been completed yet, they catch up, then you're in like this weird place of like, well, now we are telling a different story because we don't have the source material that we had for the other stuff, which is how you get things like Full Metal Alchemist and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, where the first one started out following the manga and then caught up and had to complete the story on their own, and then Brotherhood, where they follow the manga a little more closely.
Game of Thrones.
But Game of Thrones, excellent, excellent.
Example.
Thank you. Wow. Yeah, excellent example. Where, and at this point, like if I was Martin, I would maybe just let it go.
I feel like that's what's happening. And it's sad because of all of the effort that he put into that series. I do feel like he kind of wrote himself into a corner though with like there are just so many plot points to track. And there's even more in the books than there are in the show.
Yeah. So
it
many
is so
more.
complicated. And he has to keep track of all of that. And so he kind of wrote himself into a corner there where he put himself in a tough spot. But at the same time, the show ended and it was not very well received. And the ending wasn't.
Right.
And
Right.
he had supposedly consulted with them on the ending. Right. And so So now it's like, was that seriously the ending you had in mind? Like, I figured it would be kind of a bittersweet, but I expected it to at least be. I expected it to at least be a fulfilling ending, and that ending wasn't even like, I don't know.
You
But they
know,
also, yeah, the whole season 8 of Game of Thrones is just like a.
here's okay. So yeah. There are definitely things about season 8 that I did not enjoy. More things that I did not enjoy than I did enjoy. And it did feel very dissatisfying at the end. But I think that a big component of that is pacing, and I think that that can be fixed in the book. And I think that in the book you get more of like foreshadowing and the work being done early on that's going to prepare you for the ending. Like Annie going bad did not bother me at all.
No, that didn't.
Like saw that coming a
That
mile
didn't really
away.
bug me.
But it bothers some people.
Yeah, it did.
You know? So I think that there's definitely room for Martin to redeem that and complete the story in a way that's satisfying for the loyal readers, but I don't know if he's willing to. I don't know. We'll just
We're
have
at
to
a
wait
point
and see.
now where I don't think he will, because the thing is, he could never write another word in his life, and he will live comfortably until he dies.
Yeah.
Because he's still collecting money for that show. And the thing that really gets me is
I
that.
know, but writers
here's the
aren't
thing.
theoretically in it for the
He
money.
has published other things that aren't the story.
Yeah.
In the meantime, so he has time to write.
Yeah.
He's just not writing the actual story, which makes me think he's checked out and he's done with it. I just don't. I think that the show kind of was a bit of a killjoy for. I think that kind of sucked the fun out of it for him, which I totally get, and it's totally valid.
Like as cool as it would be to see something that I wrote be turned into something on the screen, I don't think I could handle it. Like as cool as it would be, I think I would want it to happen after I was dead.
Or after you had actually completed the work, you know.
Yes.
Don't let the adaptation get ahead of the actual source material, because that's when things get hairy. But anyway, back to fan fiction.
Yeah. I mean, I started that because my point was that sometimes, because the anime is not the same thing as the manga, like they're different entities.
So same thing with fan fiction, kind of. I get what you mean about like not wanting fan fiction to influence your actual story, because I think that's something that George R. R. Martin actually said, that he never goes onto forums and he never reads any fan fiction because he's afraid that someone had already like guessed certain plot points and that he would want to change them. So he's like, no, I don't want to do that. I want it to be the story that I want to write, and I don't want to feel like I need to change things to make things a surprise. Which I feel like is exactly what the showrunners were doing for season 8. Just trying to it all became a shock factor thing and not a story that actually made sense. So
which is not the reason why like if I was reading someone's fan fiction of something I wrote and they had guessed what was coming, I would be so excited
and impressed.
Yes. Because my point isn't to like shock and awe people. The point is to tell a good story. And sometimes parts of a story need to be predictable.
Sure.
Not like totally predictable.
Yeah,
but
I know what you mean.
So, like that's the whole point of foreshadowing, is to like drop clues and hints of like what's coming, so that the reader can be excited when it's finally revealed.
Yeah.
And that's something that fan fiction does, I think, particularly well, because they're working in a world that they know, that they love, but they didn't necessarily create, with characters that they know and love. And it's really cool. It can be really cool.
So at what point do you think a fan fiction author gets in trouble with, and like obviously they can't charge money for anything they do. So like what would draw the ire of the publishing house's copyright infringement team? Is it pretty much just when you start, if you try to make money off something and sell it as your own? Is that when there's like intellectual property rights come into play? And
yeah, I think so. I honestly have not researched this a whole lot, or that particular aspect of it a whole lot.
I feel like it has to be that, because there's so many fanfics out there that are readily available to read, but it's just a total work of love. It's the authors aren't trying to make money off of it.
Right. I guess I do have a little bit of an issue with the concept. Like, I appreciate the desire and drive to protect someone's intellectual property and their income. Like, totally understand that. Totally support that. But like, so much of art is art imitating art and art imitating life, that when I think about like poetry and Shakespeare and fine art and like all this other stuff, like, so much of it is derivative, and that's kind of the point. So, like, how many books, honestly, are based off of like Greek mythology, as an example?
Yeah.
Like, there are lots of, like, the Rick Riordan books, like The Last Olympian, like, all of those are based off of, like, established stories that have been told.
Greek mythology is fair use.
Right, because it's old enough. But it, okay, so someone writes a book about Persephone, and then 10 years later, somebody else writes a book about Persephone. Now, how is it that those two authors don't get in trouble with each other? Because technically they're writing about the same character. But I know their original character is fair use, but she exists again in this other writer's work of fiction. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Like,
would it be like plot points? If the plots are practically identical, would one get...
But if you're following the story of Persephone, they should be similar.
True. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
So I'm just, yeah.
It gets complicated.
It's interesting. It does. It really does. So, in my opinion, fan fiction is fair game.
Oh yeah, I think it should exist. I think that it's good though that we have like the established canon work, and that there is like a boundary, because otherwise, if people were allowed to just get on their keyboards and continue a story and like make money off of it, and if people liked their story more than the original authors and they started making more money than the original author's work, then that's not cool, because it's like you are just piggybacking off someone else's good idea. And like, yeah, maybe you continued it better than the original person, but it's still that's not fair to the person who came up with the original idea. So like, I'm glad that those like laws exist. It's just kind of a pain.
Right. I don't know like when those laws were developed. Like, were some of those a result of the Stephanie Meyer, E.L. James?
I feel like they were around before that. Maybe they just weren't.
So
maybe they just weren't as strict. And that kind of slipped under the radar, and then they became way more strict. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. But it would be interesting to talk to somebody who's actually like studied the law there and like knows more about copyright.
And really quick, just to cap this whole thing off, let's just touch on fan art really quick.
Yeah. Fan art is amazing, and I love it.
Yeah, same. And it's...
Your wife has done some really impressive fan art.
Oh, Lord.
Like drawings. We don't have to get into like what of, just in general. She can has draw. Fun with that. She can draw. Yeah.
She can, it's not tracing. She's good at drawing what she sees. Not so much just from her own brain. If she can look and she can copy things down. She's self-admitted, she can't really come up with her own, thing. But I think if she tried hard enough, she could.
Well, that's what fan art is.
But yeah. And I mean, people who draw or do art of like landscapes, our mom is an artist, and how many things that she just copies because she takes a photo of a tree or a landscape and then puts it, I mean, she still puts her own twist on it, but
well, it's a photo that she took, or
right, it's a photo that either her or dad took of a thing. But I'm not so much commenting on that as much as like her beating herself up like, oh, I can't actually draw, I can just copy things down. I'm like, dude, that's what a lot of artists do. They just they copy what they see and they put it on the page. Self-portrait. or just portrait artists. That's like all they do is copy what they see onto a
Right.
piece of paper. So like, don't bash yourself.
Yeah. No. And like most artists
Yeah.
start that way.
But
So
anyway, as far as fan art goes, I think that it's really, really cool seeing so many different perspectives on characters. And I love seeing all these different art styles. It's kind of like, because, books have like a million different covers sometimes, especially if it's books like Lord of the Rings that are old and they've been around and
yeah.
they have multiple editions. So it's really cool seeing multiple covers, and I know some of us like to collect them. You can see it's almost like you've got a different copy, and each copy
Called out.
has its own like fan art on it,
Yeah.
So
I mean, truly, what is Christopher Lee but a really fabulous fan artist?
Christopher Lee played Saruman.
Not Christopher Lee.
Alan
Lee.
Alan Lee. And
my bad.
Who's the other guy? Alan Lee and
I can see his face.
Big glasses.
Yes.
Oh, that's gonna really bother me. But Alan Lee is a really impressive artist.
I'm feeling really sad that I can't think of his name.
He deserves to be remembered, and I can't remember.
He does.
Maybe his first name is Christopher.
Oh, maybe. I'll put both of their names in the description of the video and the podcast. But yeah, they're amazingly talented artists that do other things too, but they do amazing Tolkien art. Amazing. And like their stuff gets used all the time.
Yeah. I think that they can't.
And that's why they got pulled in to do the Lord of the Rings movies, because they were already established Tolkien artists.
Which is interesting, because if you do fan art, you're not really making money. It's just for fun, right? Because you can't like sell the stuff, because it's not,
right, unless
it's vague enough where you don't identify the character, and it's like like it can just be, oh, this is a character, this is a pirate with dreads and a compass, and it's like, it looks a lot like Jack Sparrow, but I never labeled them as Jack Sparrow. I never said that's who it is. That's just an average pirate. So I'm going to sell this image of a pirate. In fact, I'm going to name this pirate James. Still a J.A. name, but just not Jack. So it's, there's the ways to kind of skirt around it. But yeah, I really enjoy fan art. I think that fan art is one of the highest forms of flattery. And
I would love if people did fan art of my books. Love it. It would make me so happy.
Because I sometimes have a hard time picturing what characters look like, and so it's really nice to just see it. And
same. Even characters that I created, I have a hard time seeing them sometimes.
That was one of my favorite things about Critical Role, was during the break they had an entire segment at the end where they played music that was composed specifically for the show, like to play over this part, and it was like this really epic fantasy music, and it was super cool. And they would just like go through a ton of fan art that had been submitted, and so you got to see all these different fan creations of like scenes that happened in the previous episode.
Oh, I love
and
that.
of like all the different characters. It's like one of my favorite parts it's my favorite part of the break, for sure. So if you choose to watch Critical Role, that is, which now campaign 3 is starting soon, so you could just start at the new campaign and not have to watch like 500 hours of content. Which I totally get is intimidating. So
it's like, at that point I might as well watch One Piece.
Hey man, I've heard that One Piece is one of the greatest works of fiction.
No, I've heard the same thing, but it is like
it's
a lot.
It's still going. It's still being made.
I know.
For those of you that don't know, One Piece is an anime and a manga series that has been around since the 90s, I think, or the early 2000s, and is still being published. Like, they're still coming out with new chapters to this day. And it's incredibly long. But apparently it's amazing, so I don't know. Maybe I'll pick it up. But that's a whole other... That's a whole thing. That would take a lot of time.
Yes.
But,
yes.
Yeah.
I will say that fan art for anime and manga gets a little tricky because sometimes it looks like the real thing.
That can be...
And then you can't tell what's real and
that can really
not.
trick you because you don't realize that you're looking at fan art and you'll think that it's a spoiler for something that happens later in the show, but it never actually happens. And it's deceiving.
Yeah.
So
yes. I saw something on TikTok the other day that I sent to your wife and was like, just so you know, this is not a spoiler. This is fan art in case you saw this. Like, do not freak out. And she was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Like, this is not real. It looks very convincing, but it is not.
I don't think I have too much more to add in the realm of fanfic other than I like it.
No, I think this was a good discussion. I should read more of it. I should go out and find
But I have
too many other things that I'm reading.
I was just gonna say I have too many things to read that are actual like official things that are actually canon.
Oh, I do. Okay, I have one more thing to add. There was a gal in my grad program who was an avid fan fiction writer, and that's how she got into the program, was by submitting fan fiction that she had
for
written.
her.
I know, and I remember like her introducing herself and saying that, and like some people being like nose up in the air, like, you write fan fiction, and I just remember thinking like, how dare you?
Yeah.
And she, like, I've read some of her fan fiction. It's on a series that I did not watch, so I'm a little in the dark.
Do you know what it was called?
It's based on the Miraculous Ladybug.
Okay.
Right?
I have no idea.
That show?
I've never heard of it.
It's a kids animated / anime, I think.
Okay.
But she's a very talented writer and very gifted, and I hope that she goes far in the publishing world. And if she's listening to this, you know who you are. I'm not going to say her name out of respect for you, but I just have a lot of respect for her. And the fact that she went into an MFA program and, like, killed it.
That's awesome that she
awesome.
got in by submitting fanfic. So if you write fanfic, you know, hold on to it. And if you're proud of it, submit it to stuff for, you know, programs and all that. So,
I mean, this is a specifically genre fiction program. I don't know that it would have worked getting into a literary fiction program.
You gotta read your audience a little bit, you know.
Yes. Yes. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing that says that fan fiction or fan art can't be just as well crafted as published works or like official art.
For sure.
So.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I think that'll probably wrap it up. Yeah.
So, if you haven't been listening to our Dragons of Autumn Twilight read along, or you haven't started reading it, you totally should. Our last episode, we got into a discussion about physics that, upon listening back to it, was quite embarrassing, but very funny. So,
who is it embarrassing for, Anna?
Me, always me.
When I was editing it, I was like, should I leave it in? I'm gonna leave it in.
You did, and I'm glad you did because it was very funny. I also totally said the wrong name when I was talking about my physics teacher.
You did. And I think I noticed that even while we were recording. I was like, I think that might be her new name. And you said that's not her.
No, it's not her name at all. It's one of my English professors' names.
I was going to say, you're definitely talking about Mrs. Westerby. But
yes,
that is not who you said at all.
No,
anyway,
it's not.
Shout out to Mrs. Westerby.
Which it sounded funny when I said it, and then I was like,
yeah,
what? And I couldn't like get my brain back on track to figure out what I was trying to say. So I was very flustered
about bowling balls and feathers. Anyway,
I think it has to do with mass. Anyway, you should listen to that if you want to hear us talk about physics incorrectly for like a good 5 minutes. Sure. But also, like, it's a good book. You should read the book.
Based on Dungeons & Dragons. So, Dragonlance novels.
Yes.
So, yeah.
All right. We will... What's our sign-off? Go read something cool.
Yeah. Go read something cool. Until then, we'll talk at you next time. Later.
Bye.